This is Laborc, and it is so nice to have you here. These are the paints you need. We start with dark sea blue, leaving 30% of the different armor panels black. This will be a darker grey NMM. I try to look out for the crevices and leave them as black as well. Where I feel like the transition is too rough between the black and dark sea blue, I blend them using glazes. To do that, just dilute your paint with a little bit of water to make it less opaque and apply the paint from the black to the dark sea blue direction. Remember, we need to do this around 13 more times for the guards, so don't be obsessed with the blending. Just add 1 or 2 layers at best. Then I mix some medium sea grey to the dark sea blue and sketch the highlight areas. As you can see, I left some armor panels black because those are going to be a different color, like those 2 little pieces on the chest and the stripes on the shoulders. With this mixture, try to make small dots and scratches like the armor was used before. This will help us with the blending and give some nice beaten up texture like Granny's feet. I'm using thin layers to build up the opacity of the color over 2 to 3 layers. After that, I use pure medium sea grey and reduce the highlight areas even more. I start to do the edge highlights to outline the armor panels, giving them some extra definition. To do that, I'm using a bit thicker consistency of paint and I apply it using the side of my brush. This might take a while, but don't worry about it to make them perfect. We just try to add more details, so that is quite enough to do them kind of roughly. Like when you feed Granny and you pre-chew the food for her, but you don't need to chew everything until it's fully liquid. Leave some bits here and there to make it more of a challenge to her. If you feel like the transition between this new layer and the previous is a bit rough, then blend it in with a couple of layers of glaze. Now with light grey, we paint the brightest highlights on the helmet and the mask and edge highlight over the torso, leaving the lower body for now so the focal point stays more on the upper body area. For the highlights I use thin layers, but for the edge highlights I change back to the thicker consistency, otherwise the edges will look messy and I will slap on your tiny hand. For the suit that he wears under the armor, I used rhinox hide with a base layer consistency. Then highlighted the folds that are facing up with burnt thread. After that, I went back to the armor panels that I left black and covered them with dark sea blue and paint them as well with the goggles. Yeah, Papa Laborc, why didn't we painted it with dark sea blue at the first place? Well, while you were highlighting with medium sea grey, it would have been easy to highlight these parts too, so old Papa Laborc would forget about them and paint them as the rest of the armor panels. But this way he didn't, see? Okay. After that, I mixed some Lotan blue to the dark sea blue and highlighted the panels. Since these little panels on the chest are more or less flat, I just try to make a gradient towards one end to another. I also use these colors to paint the goggles on the head. Then with pure Lotan blue, I make some edge highlights and diagonal lines on the panels on the front. On the shoulders, I just try to move the brightest highlights towards the top part facing to the front. After that, I use baharroth blue to further reduce the highlight areas. On the goggles, I try to make diagonal lines, but I try to place them a bit differently, because if you line those up with the eyes, it could look a little bit weird. For this little gold emblem, I used ochre brown. You need to use a thicker consistency and overbrush it, otherwise it will flow into the recesses and I need to slap on your tiny hand. So try to cover the emblem using only the side of your brush and with a thick consistency. With the same consistency, I apply some yellow ochre and ice yellow toward the right side of the little emblem to achieve a simple gold NMM effect. And that's it for this, guys. If you want to see how I painted the shield and the base of these minis, you can access to that content on my Patreon page. The link is in the video description. So thank you for joining me on this little painting adventure. A huge thanks to my patrons who support this kind of videos. With special shout out to Jonathan Rhodes, Cold-Blooded Dom, Trying to Paint Minis, Jonathan Mosner, Rulzak, Vlad D, Urtepel21, One Sharp Joecraft, Glitchy, Macrash, and Guillaume Belanger. If you want to support the work of Papa Labors, you can do that on Patreon, where you will have early access to these videos and you can vote on the next mini. Or if you need a little bit of extra help, online coaching is also available. I hope the rest of your day will be as smooth as a granny's butt cheek.